Hello and welcome to this month's edition of Keep Data Private. We have Marcel
Hiya.
and you have me, Daniela. Hello. And today, I guess the one thing we all want to talk about or have a giggle about really is the mess up with the Signal group chat that had super secret information about a military operation whereby people would be killed and bombarded. Now, the situation in and of itself, I don't want to make the wartime situation in Yemen, I don't want to make light of. This is very serious and people literally are getting killed. So my thoughts are with them. Now, what I will be chuckling at is that Trump hired a known drunk who then messed up and added a journalist to a group chat that should not even have existed on Signal. Now, I want to point out I'm a big fan of Signal. Signal needs your support, it needs your love, it needs your donation. So please give to them if you can and give as much as you can. It's a fantastic tool. It's all that, literally, and I use it myself. So it's not Signal that's at fault here. I definitely put the fault at the current administration of the US, mainly Trump and his cronies. As I mentioned, Hegseth is a drunk. He has been a drunk. He has not gone through rehab at this point in time. I do not believe for one moment that he stopped drinking completely. Therefore, you have a drunk person in charge of the military and he messed up. I'm not American. I'm firmly grounded in Europe at this point in time. It's easy to laugh at it, and yes, I did plenty. But at the same time, as a European, it does not make me feel any safer given the rest of the conversation where Europe was called pathetic at one point and other things. Because it makes me think, well, what if my political representatives share information with the US? What's going to happen then? Is it going to get shared with people that we shouldn't be sharing it with? Is it going to end up in the hands of our adversaries? And what's going to happen with our data and with my data as well? Do you want to jump in, Marcel, before I go into an hour-long rant?
I think it highlights a number of important things that are worth pointing out and discussing. The first is, as you mentioned, the tool, Signal, is a great tool for having private conversations. And it is so good at doing its job that the US military is able to use it, right, to share military secrets on. Mm-hmm. The tool itself is secure. There was no breach of Signal. Signal itself didn't fail. Signal made sure that only the people in the group chat had access to the data. And it was secure and it was encrypted and only the people in the group chat had access to it. And I think that is amazing. I think it's a tool that is free to use, that anybody can download, is so secure that the US military is using it to share military secrets and war plans. But it highlights the second thing, which is that no matter how secure the tools that you use are, if you're not aware of who you're sharing the data with, no amount of security, no amount of encryption, no amount of tool awareness is going to protect that data. If you share the data with someone who you don't trust, mm-hmm. there's nothing that the tool can do. So you need to be aware of who you're sharing the data with. And once the data has been shared with that person, the data is now public. If that person chooses it to be public, you need to be able to trust the people that you share the data with. Mm-hmm. And if you don't trust them or you don't know who they are, then you don't know what's going to happen with that data. Now, the journalist, I think, did the right thing in the sense that kept the information secret until afterwards. So it didn't affect this particular war plan. But they did make it public that this is what was being done. And I think that is two extraordinary things that the journalist did. Well, three. Firstly, managing to get onto this group chat. I don't know how that was achieved. And secondly, to keep it secret until the data itself was no longer relevant. And third, to actually share it so that people know what's going on. But I think it highlights the fact that the tool is incredibly good at what it does. It keeps things encrypted and secure, and only the people on the group chat get access to the data. But it also highlights the fact that if you don't know who else is on the group chat, or you don't trust the people that are on the group chat, or all of those user-based errors that come up, that is what you need to be aware of. I think it's, Signal aside, the data should never have been on any form of messenger app, Signal or not. It should have only ever been in a secure SCIF, which they've spoken about in the news as well. They should only ever be in a room where no electronics goes in or out of, so that people can't remove the data from that room. It's only ever in that room. That's how you actually keep data private. You make sure that the data never gets onto a messaging app, no matter how secure that messaging app is. So if you want to keep your data private, okay, never share it with anyone. Right? Keep it on your devices at home, and don't share it. Don't put it onto the internet or upload it or back it up to the cloud or anything like that. Be aware that once you let that data out of that secure environment, and the military states that was that SCIF that they'd let the data out of, it is potential has for it to go to public, because you no longer, once it's out there, it's no longer in your control. And any one of those people on that call, whether it was a journalist that happened to be part of the group chat, could put that data and shared it by email, because once it's been shared by a Signal, they can then do what they like with it. They can also upload it to the cloud or publish it on the internet or whatever. I mean, it's you are literally trusting the people, right, to use the data securely, and to do what's right. And that's why you have that initial point where it should never come out of the SCIF. It should never have gone onto an electronic device. So that is the side that needs to be investigated. How did it ever get onto an app? Never mind the fact that it was shared. That app was then shared with a journalist that should never have been part of that group chat. So I think there's a lot of positive takeaways from that that we can learn. Firstly, how secure the app is, so that you can confidently use this application between people that you trust. And secondly, being aware that once that data is shared with somebody, or you lose trust with that person, that it is no longer going to be private. You can't guarantee that data remains private forever. So I think that's just from my point of view. That's it's an incredibly good example that we can all learn from and take away positive messages from.
Yes, most certainly. And as you said, it's just one example of many that are out there at the moment. And as you rightly say, it should never have left the SCIFs as they're described. But maybe it's simply a change of how the current administration is doing things. Who knows? We will see how it plays out. But it's not only super secret information like this, but it's company information as well that is currently being talked about. And some companies are actively trying, or some European companies are actively trying to move the data back to Europe. GDPR, which is the General Data Privacy Regulation in Europe, has taken strides over the last few years. So there are rules and regulations already. I believe that some companies will put more effort into getting the data back. Not everyone will be on the forefront of that effort, but I do think that will be coming in the next few months and years for a very similar reason. Having not only access to the data, but being able to mine it and use it and exploit the data is giving the companies or whoever has access to it a competitive advantage. So the example with the war situation is it gives you an advantage in in the operation that's being planned. If it's in a company, then it can give you other advantages, such as having data to train AI, maybe having data on how your customers behave and what they want and what to plan for in the future, what new products are being wanted, and so on. And all of that data has value. And that value, I believe, is being considered more now, more so now that we are in a situation where there seems to be a move away from globalization, and countries or regions seem to consider or reconsider what they can do with the data and where they should keep it. It is one of
Yeah.
my thoughts.
No, I think that's incredibly important because, again, it shows that if you save your data in a cloud on a server somewhere, no matter what the organization says at the time that you put that data up there, it doesn't necessarily stay that way. And I think the issue with a lot of the US companies and the data in the US is that they are all agreeing to expose that data to government requests. And we've seen a lot of Europeans being arrested, tourists with valid visas and things like that being arrested at the border for having anti-Trump messaging on their phone or their laptop or something like that. So that data, which has been stored in the US, physically in the US, and the companies that run those servers in the US are agreeing to open that data up to the government to have a look at. And even if they choose not to, I mean, the prime example as well of all the Social Security data from the Treasury Department, all that information has effectively been leaked. We don't know where that data is or what's happened to it, who has access to it, etc. So that, whether it's agreed by an organization or not, even within the government, the data has been exposed, and who knows what has been done with it. So yes, Europe has strong GDPR messages, and yes, I know we've spoken about this before, that the German government, for example, insists that private data is physically located in Germany, which always seemed a bit ridiculous, because as long as the servers were controlled by an organization, it didn't matter where they physically located. The organization itself is what controls the data and how the data is accessed and used. And it didn't matter physically. But it's a lot easier when we talk about the US and Europe, where Europe has the GDPR rules in place and the US doesn't. That means that a US company that has access to the data is no longer needs to comply with the GDPR rules. So it should be interesting going forward to see what happens to data from US companies that are agreeing to provide their data to the US government, that holding European data, and whether it's physically located in Europe or not, I don't think makes a difference. It's the organization itself that is giving access to the US government. So it's one of those scenarios where if you upload data into the cloud, right, it doesn't matter what the company says they're going to do with that data. That policy can change and does change, and it's been shown over and over again how those policies change and people's data is lost. Whether they're hacked or not is a separate question. It's the fact that they're willingly giving the data over. I think that's important at the moment. And this is something for us all to consider, that when you upload something into the cloud, whether it's public or not, you need to consider that data now public, that anybody can access it, anybody should be able to view it. If you don't want anybody to be able to view that data, don't put it up there, even if it is in a private location within the cloud. It may not be private forever.
That is true. And even if you think, oh, it's a company that is encrypting all of my data, end-to-end encryption and encryption at the location as well, then you have cases like 23andMe that is being, or that's going through receivership at this point. So chances are they will be bought by another company that may or may not have different rules and guidelines on data privacy and so on. And the scary thing is, as you mentioned at the beginning, it doesn't matter whether you delete your data or not. Your data is on there. You can't really delete it forever anymore. It is there. It's somewhere in the backups. There is a trace of it. You can't get rid of it anymore. It's so unlikely that just because you hit the delete button that your data really will be deleted and will be gone forever for nobody else to see anymore, that I am prepared to put a full dollar or full euro on a wager to say it won't be. I've worked in this area in IT for many years, and the number of backups and old copies we had just in case was beyond belief, depending on which industry we're thinking about. But generally, it's really, really hard to delete old data in this day and age. Some people may have tried to delete a picture of Google Photos and it just keeps coming back. Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same with newsletters, unsubscribing from a newsletter, even with GDPR in place. And then suddenly you get another newsletter from somebody, the same person you've just described, and maybe 2-3 years later. And that just goes to show that that email address was never deleted from their distribution lists.
That's correct. That's correct. Personally, I've got a prepared email already where just politely and friendly respond to them, suggesting that as per GDPR, you have to delete my data. And so far, it's better for European companies to get me off the list. So far, none of them have sent me unwanted newsletters again since then, since I've started doing that.
Yes, and I think that's why the GDPR regulations are so strong and powerful in Europe. I think they really do force organizations to do what's necessary, to understand that it's better to delete the email address and all the personal details when requested than to risk the fines associated with not doing that. Because it just needs one person to demonstrate that they're not complying for them to get fined.
On that note, I'd like to get onto my personal hobby horse for a moment. It shows, or it means GDPR is regulation, yes, and regulation costs money, may slow companies down, but it does mean that it gives a little bit more power to people. People have power in nearly every situation. Use it. If you're out there and you're thinking, oh, what should I do with my data? Should I put it there or not? Use it. Think about it. Read the small print. If the small print is too long or too complicated to read, is it really worthwhile? There are some situations where you can't get around it. I fully understand that. But generally, especially things like social media and the likes, you have a choice. Use the choice. Inform yourself. Read up on what it really means to be the owner of your own data. It's yours and it has value. Don't just give it away for free. Make it the companies at least work for it. Don't just hand it over without thinking about it. Think about it. Make sure you understand the power you have over your actions and your data, and then use it wisely. Okay.
Yeah, unless you choose to make it public.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and that's a choice that you need to make. But I think it should always be an all or nothing choice. Either you're choosing to make it public, or you don't share it.
Yes. Read up, as I said. Read up and decide. Not don't just let it happen. Decide whether you want to do it or not to do it.
Yeah. And privacy policies, as we watched a video the other day, privacy policies, and a lot of them just copy each other. They don't actually put any thought into it. They're not actually thinking about what privacy means to them and how important it is to their customers. They're literally just cutting and pasting a privacy policy from somewhere else, changing the name of the company that's in the boilerplate code and putting it out there, not actually considering privacy policy. They don't care. They literally don't care about it. So it's all very well reading the privacy policy, but also be aware that most companies haven't put much thought into it.
Yes, I completely agree. And the reason I'm laughing is because I used to work for a company and I was approached by somebody in a social setting. Oh, your company has been bought by the much larger competitor now, I've seen. And I was unaware. I didn't know where that comment came from until it turned out that this person tried to sign up, read through the privacy policy, which was copied from the much larger competitor, and still had the other company's name in there a couple of times. So read the small print. It can be very informative. It may make you giggle like it did me at that point when I checked up on it. Things like that happen. Cutting corners and not having regulation allows you to cut corners like that. And those issues will come up. Inform yourself, be smart, and take decisions. Don't just let it happen to you.
Yeah. And if the privacy policy doesn't make sense, because it's full of legalese, understand that that's done deliberately. If they wanted the privacy policy to make sense and for it to be easy to understand, then they would make it, easy to understand and make sense. So, I think it tells you a lot about the organization and how, they think about your data and how they value your privacy based on the privacy policy itself.
Correct. Yes. On the note of decide where you want to put your data, it's not only the data like social security or your date of birth, your mother's maiden name, and your passwords, but it is also your thoughts and your political leanings, in everything and anything that makes you you. As we've talked about earlier, people are being stopped at the border from Canada to the USA, and they are asked to show their Facebook profiles and things like that, to show data that they have put out into the world. Some of them are stopped and turned around. Some of them have been incarcerated for whatever reason, and things like that. So it's not only the data that you think is secure or private or personal. Sometimes it's just something that made you laugh on the internet and you liked it. Nowadays it can get you in trouble in some parts of the world. It's not only the US, but some parts of the world. Again, think about it. What do you want out there in the world? And also, which kind of world do you want to live in 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What kind of world do you want to co-create by either putting something out on, say, Facebook? Personally, I'm not on Facebook because I dislike the privacy policy and things like that. But many people are. And again, what do you want to put out there? What do you want people to know about you? And when I say people, I don't only mean your friends and family, but also border patrol, the people at the airport, you know, things like that. Think about it. Don't just let things happen to you. Think about it. Are you willing to live with the consequences? Personally, I have no reason to enter the US, and chances are I will not go there for a very long time. It's my choice. I don't just let it happen. It's something I decide. And I hope you're the same here too.
No, exactly. I think it again highlights, that anything you put up, may be fine and dandy today, but laws can change, especially, as in the US, the whole freedom of speech and being able to say what you like, has been abolished. And if you say anything negative about the current president, you can get arrested when you enter the country, and people are being arrested and disappeared basically. There was one woman who also ended up going off and having a dreadful experience just for what she's posted on social media.
Now, anyone out there who thinks, well, you were in cozy little Europe, why do you care so much about what happens in the US? Valid point, valid question. The reason why I care what happens in the US is because it impacts the whole world. It appears to me as if nowadays we are less bound by nation states and borders the way they are, and we're more governed by larger companies that may have a larger market capitalization in some countries. And that's a bit of a worry. Those big organizations, they're global organizations, and yes, they do have the monetary power to influence elections and to influence the media and the press and social media and everything. So that's why I'm very much looking at the US, what's happening there. There are a few countries in Europe that have gone further right wing as well. I'm pleased, not happy, but I'm okay with the outcome of the German election at this point in time. I do think that Europe pulling together a little bit more is a good thing, but I don't think that we will be through this phase of deglobalization, as some people call it, in a hurry. So that's why looking at what is happening in the US is quite important, because it makes me more aware of what to look out for where I live as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being ignorant of what's going on out in the world is, just heading for a disaster, because it can all go horribly wrong very quickly in your country as well. Or you choose to just go on holiday and you're not aware of what's going on in the country. Things have changed in the country you're going on holiday to. So, when the US ends up on the list of do not travel lists, as that is in some countries at the moment, it tells you a lot.
Yes.
Anyway, I think focusing on keeping your data private, publishing what you want to publish, make sure that it's public, being aware that the future can change things. Just us talking about it now, this is going to be made public when we publish it as well. We need to be aware of the fact that that's not something that we can hide or remove going forward. But as long as we stand behind what we believe, and you're happy to stand behind that, that's important as well. I think people need to stand up for what they believe in, because if you start hiding behind and trying to comply, then you're in just as much trouble.
Yes.
I read an interesting quote from somebody saying, when they look at their neighbors and they think if Anne Frank had these neighbors, they wouldn't have been safe for so long. And that's a worrying thought.
Yes. Yes, very much so. Yes, I can feel my mind going down a very, very dark rabbit hole at the moment.
Yeah, let's
Shall
get
we?
into politics. I think it's been a great discussion about Signal, about your data, being aware of where your data is, what you make public and what you don't, and using the right tools, but being also aware of who's on the other end of your communication tools, even if they are private tools like Signal. I think if we keep focusing on understanding what it is that's happening with our data, then we'll be in a good place in the future.
Yes, and if anyone out there from the US is listening and they need an invite letter or something to Europe to escape what's going on, just get in touch. That's all we can do, really. Well, thanks for listening. Join us next time.
Yes.
Do come up with your own topics if you like. Send in questions and comments if you like. It is important to have those conversations, even if I'm not a security researcher or anything like that at this point. Just having the conversation is what needs to happen at every level of society. And that's what we're here for.
Exactly.
Okay. See you next month, the 4th Tuesday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, UTC. Check your time zones. I know that Europe is moving to summertime this weekend. And if you're in the US, you've moved over already. So check your time zones. 4th weekend at 4 p.m. UTC. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.